Well, there's only one bowl game today, and it is the Sugar Bowl tonight, played as always, the Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. This year's Sugar Bowl is the Florida Gators from the SEC taking on Louisville from the Big East. Florida is currently installed as a 14-point favorite on BETDAQ, 45.5 the total in this game. Now, as you may have guessed from seeing the line here, it's a little bit of a mismatch. Florida has better talent across the board than Louisville. However, the Gators do not have a very good offense this year, and they've let several teams who are less talented hang around and play them close. I mean, just 3 games ago, they played Louisiana Lafayette in Florida, in the swamp, and squeaked by 27-20, had to block a punt at the end of that game to win. And the week before then, they squeaked by a bad Missouri team 14-7. So the Gators, a very conservative offense. You know, it seems like they could be better if they open things up, but that's not what Will Muschamp wants to do. Ever since Muschamp took over as coach a couple of years ago at Florida, he's talked about wanting to win with a power running game. Almost seems like Florida is trying to out-Alabama Alabama or out-LSU LSU. And I admit I was skeptical. I was skeptical until this season, really, with Muschamp's philosophy there, because the Gators, in their history, had never won an SEC championship until Steve Spurrier got there in the 90s and started throwing it around everywhere. They had tried to out-Alabama Alabama for 50 years or more, and they hadn't been very successful. However, this season, they have been successful. Now, they didn't get to play Alabama. They're probably not quite as good as Alabama. But, hey, they played LSU in the swamp a couple of months ago, and they ran it right down their throat in the second half, beat LSU, really out-muscled that team that throughout the years, throughout the last decade or so, whenever they've beaten Florida, it's been because they've pushed Florida around and been the tougher team. That was not the case this season. So Will Muschamp has this team looking just how he wants them to look. They're 11-1 this year, currently ranked 3rd in the country. But we talked about their offense, 103rd in the country in total offense, 118th in pass yards per game. Florida only passes for 143 yards per game. Now, as we mentioned, that's largely by design. When you watch Jeff Driscoll, Florida's quarterback, play tonight, you might ask yourself, wait a second, why don't they throw it a little more? Now, they don't have many game breakers at the wide receiver position, but it seems to me that they could open up the offense a little bit and be a little better on that side of the ball. But you know what? I'm not the head coach, and Will Muschamp clearly knows what he's doing. After all, they were 11-1 this year, as we said, 3rd in the country right now. Now, the reason they're that good, the reason they're 3rd in the country is because of their defense, and we know Muschamp is a defensive guy, and the Gators have a nasty defense this year. Probably 7-8 guys on that defense have an NFL future. They were 3rd in the country in points allowed this season. They only allow 12.9 points per game, and Louisville does not have a particularly good offense. Cardinal ranked 47th in the country in total offense. Now, the best player on Louisville's offense, and maybe the best offensive player in this game tonight, is their quarterback, young Teddy Bridgewater. If you have not seen this guy play, keep an eye on him. He is an NFL prospect. Doesn't have a whole lot around him in terms of the skill position players. Louisville does not run the ball very well, so it will fall on Bridgewater's shoulders as it has most of the year. He's handled it really well. Passes for 298 yards per game. And Louisville was really rolling this season until they lost 2 out of their last 3 games. And they weren't good losses. They lost to a terrible UConn team, and then they were blown out by Syracuse. They did win their final game, but it was a close one. Beat Rutgers by 3, so Louisville did not end the season on a high note. Florida did, beating Florida State on the road, a game in which the Gators were 7 or 7.5 point underdogs. So I think that's why we see Florida, laying a big number here, 14. If this game were played in the middle of November, say, before Louisville lost 2 out of the last 3 games, before Florida finished the year with that impressive road win against Florida State, I think this line would be closer to 9. I think there would be a big difference in this line. But it is 14 now. I do feel good about the Gators winning this game. Like I said, they're clearly the better team. They should be able to lock down the Louisville offense. But I don't know if I'm comfortable laying 14. I've seen Florida play several times this season, and they're very conservative on offense like we talked about, and it is by design. I think they could be better on offense if they open things up, but that's not what Will Muschamp wants to do. And it is Will Muschamp. It is not offensive coordinator Brent Peace. They brought him in, of course, from Boise State. The offense Peace ran there at Boise State, much more wide open, spread out. But if you've heard Muschamp talk ever since he took the job 2 years ago, he has talked repeatedly, and he's had 2 different offensive coordinators, Charlie Weiss and Brent Peace. But Muschamp has talked repeatedly about being a power running team, establishing the running game, winning by running the football and playing defense. And that's exactly what the Gators have done this year. So as I said, he's molded this team in his image. But because of that, I do not feel comfortable laying the 14 here. My favorite bet in this game is the under. 45.5 is the total. And that's a relatively low total for a bowl game. But as I said, I think the Florida defense is going to totally lock down this Louisville offense. And the slow and steady Florida offense should be good enough to win the game. But I'd be surprised if they put up any more than 24, 27 points here. So I do like under 45.5 tonight. And I do expect Florida to win this game.